Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Jose Segura and I'll be doing my imaginative response presentation here. I based it off a short story that I wrote about my little brother after he was in a pretty serious car accident about 4 years ago. It was my first year at UNR and I let him borrow my car so that him and a friend could go take placement exams to go to some of the junior colleges in the area. It didn't go as smoothly as we could have hoped, but they're both okay. I wanted to take this opportunity, however, to write a little bit about it in the perspective of my little brother. I changed names and all that, but I wanted to imagine what it would be like to go through a situation like that. Mostly because in a lot of the literature that we've gone through this session, I noticed that death is always something that's mystified. It's something that is not really that tangible, and when we do encounter it, it's either in a moment of peril or at least a moment of near death experiences. But when it is encountered, it always seems to bring about those moments when people have a chance to reflect, that life flashing before your eyes kind of idea. But in this instance, I've slowed everything down just so that there's a opportunity for people to kind of unwrap what goes through those moments. I personally have been through a few serious incidents myself, but I wanted to choose one that wasn't necessarily one that I had really close interaction with. I wanted to pick something that forced me to try and imagine what it was like flipping through the air, flying down this embankment. And so in this presentation, I wanted to go through two main aspects. The first being the gifts that we are presented with. They are material gifts or they are spiritual or emotional gifts that we receive from our family. And that's what ultimately helps us define those things. And kind of going through the mystification of death and how those things intertwine. But I also wanted to pick something that was really grounded in reality. I didn't want to pick something that was so far-fetched or seemed esoteric. I wanted to pick something that involved aspects of our world that are easily interpreted, but also something a little bit more heady, but not anything necessarily that could be too confusing. And if you do or don't know the music that is referenced, you can look it all up. I won't bother you guys with singing these songs to you, but they're all easily looked up on YouTube, and I did put it inside of the short story at the very end, so you can look them up if you want to. So first in the story, I kind of lay out just the background of the character, and it always seems that the main character or the narrator has some sort of pride element that they possess. They're always ready to just go make their own path and make their own choices, and screw whatever family has to say about it. They just want to be their own person. But it's in this moment when he first catches himself flying off the embankment that he hears his mother singing that song, I'll Love You Forever. It's from a really great short story book. If you got kids or you plan on having kids, I would highly recommend reading it to them. But it talks about the unconditional love that is given to people, especially in a situation like this. However, I think that that's a moment to really introduce a firm and everlasting aspect of what it means to be in family. And mothers are often associated with that. And even if they're not, the absence of that certainly shapes the character. And in this moment for the short story, Rocky is just someone who, knows that their mother loves them and loves their mother unconditionally in return. It does move on though into the second aspect, which is the hope and the desire. And I think we just saw that a lot of that in this last book that we read, Comfort Woman, where they go into a lot of what it means for a parent to want the best for their kid despite everything that they've been through. So the choices that they make are not always rational, but it forces us to go on those adventures and go to seek out our own paths, which is what I think comes out in the second song that's sung to him. The third song, if you've ever seen this opera, it's Don Giovanni by Mozart. I highly recommend that for anybody to watch. Put on subtitles, of course, but it's really great music. And the story that's told is ultimately ends with Don Giovanni not wanting to repent for his sins. And I'm not saying, in the story that Rocky is someone who should be, reprimanded for anything that they've done in that way. These are pretty minute things that he's done. He smokes weed and, hangs out with his friends too late. I don't think that that's something that's too high of a transgression. But in a high adrenaline situation like that, when you're in a near-death experience, everything seems heightened, and I just wanted to kind of give that a chance to play itself out. Now the last one, this is a song actually that my father sang to us when we were all kids, and I didn't really think much of it. I actually didn't even really know the words until I looked them up. I had always just kind of made up words in my head of what I thought he was singing about. But, you know, the father figure is always supposed to be, you know, the one with the firm voice and who gives all reason and guidance to everything. And in the end, I think that sense of irony when he sings about the raton vaquero, which just translates pretty roughly but easily into cowboy mouse. And it's a prideful little mouse who goes off on his own. He has his two little guns, and he runs into this house and ends up getting caught by a woman who just has one of the tiniest little traps for him, and he ends up inside of it, and he sings this little song about not wanting to be caught like a trout. And yeah, that was just a lot of me going back and thinking about music that I can always connect to people, very specific people in my life, and then trying to imagine how that could play out in a situation of peril. Like I said earlier, I personally have never been through anything to that high grade of fear and adrenaline, but certainly when anyone goes through a situation like this, I always imagine that when it comes down to breaking down just the really core aspects of family, that those are the ideas that people end up coming back to every single time.